always find myself at least a little bit surprised when Mike Tomlin references ceiling and floor. Floor especially. Floor sounds bad. Floor isn't bad. And it's actually really cool to hear Tomlin speak to its value. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots. Penguins and Pirates, the other two teams in town that I cover. We're 2 weeks and a day away from the NFL draft, and I'm kind of getting the impression that we could be 2 hours and a minute away from the draft and still not have any solid sense for who the Steelers are going to take or even which way they might be leaning. Remember, those can be two very different dialogues because you can go into the draft saying, oh, we want this, and we want this, but then the draft will present you with a totally different scenario and you've got to wing it. The main focal point, of course, through the nation, is the quarterback position. Whether or not Aaron Rodgers ever decides that he's going to come down from Mount Olympus and bless us all with his presence, or more specifically, bless the Steelers with a yes or a no, the quarterback in the draft scenario is still going to apply. I've said all along, they're going to draft a quarterback. Infinitely more important, their actions show you that they're going to draft a quarterback. Yesterday, word emerged that the Steelers are going to have Shedeur Sanders in for a visit on the South Side. This, of course, is the offspring of one Deion Sanders, and a very talented football player in his own right. As a quarterback, or I should say, as an NFL prospect of a quarterback, meaning applying whatever skill sets worked for you in college into the pro level, Shedeur is seen as something of a project, not in the derogatory way, although I can't see how that would be flattering either. But let's put it this way, not to the extent that others are referred to as projects. And that's something that a lot of teams, a lot of scouts find to be more attractive because that player comes with ceiling. They have more potential. They can shoot a lot higher. Whereas on the other hand, if you look at, say, for example, a Will Howard from Ohio State, you're going to see someone who feels like they're a safer pick, might be able to suit up for you sooner, even as a starter. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. They're not going to get a whole lot better. Not going to get worse, which is nice. They're not going to get better. Now understand, I get irrationally giddy when Tomlin talks about anything related to the future beyond the game that's being played next Sunday. So I'm, of course, going to feel that way when he values ceiling over floor, because it at least means he's thinking about something in the longer range. So in turn, what I've been trying to bounce around inside my own brain as it relates to just quarterback in just the draft is which one might be the best fit for Pittsburgh. Do you want to have as many ceiling types as possible in your mix or even in your sights when it comes to 2026 and say, hey, let's just shoot for the stars here. Let's get, I don't know, both a Sanders and a Milroe, Jalen Milroe, of course, of Alabama, not in the same draft. That's why I threw 2026 into it, that you would get somebody now and you would get somebody next year who'd be in a similar style or a similar time frame or ceiling factor. And if you get two of those, you get one this year and one next year, a Sanders/Milroe, then are you closer to fulfilling what our Rooney had brought up on his own in our January session on the South Side toward having a quarterback room that has multiple players with similar styles and the emphasis on mobility that he additionally stressed. You following me on this? Or are you looking just to have someone who could come in and be ready as soon as possible, be more of a certainty for you after a half decade of not having anything of the kind at the position? In other words, it would be the let's just quit messing around kind of pick. We're going to get this guy, we at least know what he is, and we're going to do our best to Brock Purdy him into the NFL, even if we have to go all systems at the position and not necessarily rely on a ton of mobility, game-breaking, arm talent. Just going to find somebody who can get the ball to DK Metcalf, get the ball to George Pickens, wherever they happen to be on the field, get the ball to Pat Freiermuth. And that's where I think of the Howard and the Tyler Shuck, for that matter, actually the Jackson Dart types too. That's not to say that those guys don't have arm talent. Don't take everything that I say and apply it across the board in this episode. And then I lay all that out, and remember that it's all still bouncing in my brain, right? And I come to the same conclusion I come to with every subject about quarterback right now, which is that I have no idea. I have no idea because I don't know who's going to be starting for this team. They, I believe this, don't know who's going to be starting for this team. So do they have one slot behind Rodgers and Mason Rudolph? Do they have two slots behind Rudolph? If they have two, could they afford to take one ceiling guy and one floor guy? I don't know, because we don't know what Rodgers is thinking or doing or anything. And yes, that matters, because the draft is coming up. It matters. It's not a matter of me being impatient, you being impatient, the media or the fan base being impatient. It has to do with building the most important room. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from FC, who says, all right, DK, you're right, and I'm wrong in terms of the Steelers' run defense. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm just going to interrupt here. What FC is referring to is my previous episode in which I yet again cast doubt on the Steelers needing interior defensive line help versus wanting it, and I did that primarily because all I ever hear from anybody as an argument in favor of that is, well, we gave up 299 yards to the Ravens in the playoff game. To which I countered that the Steelers still ended up the season as the sixth best run defense in the National Football League. So back to FC. Says, my J1Q is, what do you think caused the Steelers to give up those 299 rushing yards? Was it a bad game plan? Or did they, meaning the Ravens, just physically whoop us? I guess it had to be both, right? Part of me feels like since we're going to have to stop the Ravens' rushing attack 2 to 3 times a year, we might as well just make it a priority to have a defensive tackle. And I am going to say for the millionth time, because I believe this, everyone is so wounded by that singular facet of that singular game that it's clouding everything else when it comes to judgment about this defense, let alone about this football team. What I saw go wrong in Baltimore that day was close to everything, including very, very, very much, since this is part of your question, the schematics. Your wording was it a bad game plan? The answer to that is, my God, yes. And it was one of the most transparently bad game plans that you'll ever see. When you see the body language, for example, and I was there covering it, so I'm not watching on TV, I'm watching the whole field, including the sideline, and when you see how TJ Watt was reacting to what was happening out there, he knew that they blew it. And he knew that they needed to adjust, and he knew that they didn't. And for anyone that's forgotten this, and it was something that was brought up a lot on this program and in our written coverage on DK Pittsburgh Sports, the Steelers had a plan to crash down on Derrick Henry with their edge rushers, meaning just go to him even if he's not getting the ball. Essentially, erase him from the picture and dare the Ravens to beat you some other way. Well, they sniffed that out almost instantly. It's not hard. Your edge rushers are crashing down on your running back. The entire stadium could see that. So Lamar Jackson basically gets a get-out-of-jail-free card and runs wherever he wants, gets all those big early first downs in the game, and the Steelers kept doing it. They kept doing it until about the midpoint of the third quarter. You've never seen anything so dumb. This went through halftime. You know, when you're supposed to actually read and recognize this stuff and then revamp it if necessary. The third quarter, they were still doing this. And yet you have people asking, even to this day, what happened to TJ in that game? He disappeared. No, he didn't. He was doing exactly what he was told to do. Believe it or not, he wasn't about to get credit for TFLs for chasing a ghost. So that went wrong. There was some less than superlative work when it comes to tackling among everyone on the defensive side. But it wasn't like that in and of itself became the story the way it was, say, a couple years earlier with that debacle in Minneapolis, where the Steelers just literally could not stop Dalvin Cook. I mean, they just couldn't do anything. Even if they schemed it beautifully, they couldn't bring him down. They couldn't catch him. But if you want proof that the Steelers themselves, even though Art Rooney, Omar Khan, and Mike Tomlin all referenced those 299 yards in interview sessions after the season, if you want proof that even they don't take that performance all that seriously, you know how I'm always talking about, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Okay, do you know who was the only effective, actually he was kind of dominant, player the Steelers had in that game as far as stopping the run? That's right, pal. It was Elandon Roberts. He had 14 tackles total. That's 4 more than anybody else in the game. He had 7 solos. That also was the most of anyone on either side. And they let him walk away for a song when the season was done. They didn't lift so much as a pinky finger to keep him from leaving through free agency for the Raiders. Now, you tell me if they were so hung up on what went wrong in Baltimore that they let the only truly impactful defender in that game, and it's not as if Landon's not a known run stopper in general, walk away. How scarred do you really think they are? I loved this question. I love when we get something that pushes the boundaries a little bit, meaning makes you think. Makes me think. Hope it made everybody who's listening think as well. Appreciate everyone who listens to this show. We're going to do another one of them tomorrow.